A very common problem with pit firing is that your pots crack. Maybe you experienced this, maybe you saw it with others and fear of doing pit fire. And maybe you think you need to use ragu clay or high grog clay to even get away with pit fire. That's not my experience. In fact, I never crack my pots. In this video I will show you how exactly I do that. The first couple of pit fires I didn't know so much about it. I had been reading something, I had been watching some YouTube videos, but I actually never done it with someone else, so I just went ahead and did it myself. And I think I was maybe just lucky, because all the pots came out perfect. I was so happy. It was a grogged stoneware that I was using for all my pots, not very high, I think it was 25% grog. A stoneware that I used to throw a lot, I like it. But it wasn't a ragu clay and it wasn't a no grog clay. It came out perfect. So then I pushed the limits a little bit. In my next fire, I put in a lot of stuff that I've made in porcelain. I also tried porcelain in ragu. That did not work so well, to say the least. But again, they came out of the pit perfect. There was no cracking. And so then I started to investigate a little bit more what I did to make the pots not crack. And I came out with a few things. But first, let me say, you can fire almost anything, I think maybe everything, in a pit fire. I've been using grog clay, non-grog clay, reclaimed clay, porcelain, of course without any grog, and it all come out perfect. I never crack my pots, except there's of course always some exceptions. But actually, in my case, the pots that I did crack didn't crack inside the kiln, inside the barrel. They cracked because of one reason. I was being impatient. So I didn't let it cool down enough. I wanted to see what it looked like, and I took them out. I had to use gloves because it was still so warm. I took them out, and it was a kind of a cold day. They were perfect, and then they cracked. Because it is that sudden thermal shock you get when you take something out, and it's maybe, I don't know, it was 150, 200 degrees, maybe even warmer on the inside, Celsius, and then out in a cold day in Denmark, maybe 8, 10 degrees, and that didn't work so well. So that you should be aware of. So for God's sake, be patient. It's basically the same thing as when you're dealing with a normal kiln, an electric kiln especially, because you have heating elements. They don't like to be shocked with cold waves. So you gotta be patient. It's actually not so warm now. Now I want to take it out and I want to take a look at it. And this is exactly what you shouldn't do. Because right now it looks great. All the pots appear to be perfect. There's no cracking, and that's the first important thing. But if I take them out now, too early, when they're still a bit warm, that's when you increase the likelihood of cracking, in my experience. So please be patient. You've done all this work, you've thrown nice pieces, you wrapped them up nicely, you fired all night. Wait a few more hours. Some people have asked me if the reason that their pots crack in the pit fire is that it's getting too hot. Even though I understand the question, I'm pretty sure that's not the reason. And I'll tell you why. It's because the flames won't get any hotter than flames do. And when you're firing wood like I do here, flames can get up to about 800 degrees centigrade. So they won't get much hotter than that. When it glows, when it gets into glows, it eases down. If there's enough oxygen, they can, as I understand it, get up to about 1,000 degrees, but not any more than that. So even if you put all the fire, or even if you put all the wood on it that you can find and make a huge bonfire out of it, it still won't get any hotter. Another question is how long you fire. The way that I fire, the circle that I have is that I fire it up slowly, as we talked about. That takes a few hours. Then I feed it a little more wood, another couple of hours, so maybe 3-4 hours with like full flames until I can feel that the heat is getting down into the barrel. And then I slowly let it ease out and go into this glow stage. And then it will glow all night, and sometimes when I get there in the morning, as I said before, there's still some glowing there, and when I open up, the flame starts again. So the actual burning and glowing can be maybe 12 hours, and then it will cool down after that. That circle, to me at least, have proven to give really good results. Now, on the other hand, if I kept putting wood on it, and theoretically I could have it burning for 3 days, I think that a lot of the colors would burn out. I haven't tried, but theoretically that would happen eventually. So I wouldn't fire too long, but I wouldn't be afraid of firing to a temperature that's too high, because it's not possible the way that we fire here. Another reason for pot breakage in pit firing has nothing to do with the heat or the cooling or when you take it in and out and stuff. It has to do with how you stack your drum, and especially if you fire like me in an oil drum where you have multiple layers. It is very important that you think about how they're gonna fall on each other. So the first layer is easy enough because you're gonna spread that out typically on a soft bed. At least that's what I do, some straw or some sawdust or something so they sit tight and nice there. But then on top of that, you're going to build layers of other pots, maybe some more wood or sawdust or whatever you put in there. And that's exactly when you have to think about how you layer it. What I like to do is that I put the pots maybe like this, and then the other pots are put a little bit away from that. So when they fall down, they don't fall down in a bad way on each other. So, of course, I also put the heavier ones at the bottom and the lighter ones in the top. But also with the pieces of wood that I put in between, I try and put it in between the pots, not so much on top of them. I don't want things to fall down too heavy on each other. So, I mean, it's not an exact science, but I think just thinking about how you layer things will probably do it better. At least the way I've been doing it, nothing has cracked in that part of the process. What I usually do now when I fire is that I start the fire early in the afternoon. It's, I don't know, 3-4 o'clock now. It will take another hour or something to pack up the kiln. And then I start it. The two things that I found is most important for not cracking your pots is to fire it slowly. You want to build the fire on top and let it slowly soak into your kiln, your barrel in this case. Same thing if it's a pit in the ground or something. You don't want a dramatic shock to your pots. If you stack your pots and then put a bonfire on top of that doesn't actually touch the pots, and let it slowly soak into the kiln, into the barrel, then they will heat up slowly. And then I let it burn slowly for a long time, hours and hours. So I usually keep on the fire, adding a little more wood, keep on the fire for at least 2, 3, maybe 4 hours. And then when it kind of, not dies out, but turns into glows and the flames are gone, then I start to choke it a little bit. So I put the lid on maybe half, not fully. I still want some air, but I want to force the air from the bottom to draw in some of that air to feed the glows and the flames down there. And then I keep it going like that for a few more hours. And then typically around midnight, so by that time I spend maybe 5-6 hours feeding the fire slowly. Then I put the lid on completely. And that will choke it and to some degree create a different type of atmosphere, some sort of a reduction. And then I will let it stay there for the entire night. And if I did it well, the next morning, or early in the day, depending on when I wake up, next morning, it will still be very warm. Typically too warm to actually take it out. That's about the time when you, in an electric kiln, will start to lift the lid just a little bit to just help the cooling process, but not give it too much of a shock. I do the same. I take the lid off, maybe not completely off, but just a little bit off. So sometimes actually the flames come back even after 12 hours. Sorry, that was the sun. Even after 12 hours, the flames sometimes come back when I take off the lid and oxygen come into the glows. But then I will let it burn out. And that's where you don't want to make the mistakes that I did, because I was so curious, so I had to pick up some of the pots, and you should not do that. That is a very good way of getting cracks. So let it go. I go and drink some coffee, get some breakfast, and then go and look at it. Sometimes if I had a really good fire, it can take up to another 3, 4, 5, 6 hours before it's cold enough. So very often I won't be able to actually unload the pots before noon or after lunch. By that time, it is cold enough that you can actually touch it with your bare hands. And I think that's maybe a good goal. At least I found that if I can touch it with my bare hands, it's easier to handle, but also it doesn't crack. I hope if you like this, my other videos, you want to see more, please subscribe, like, share, make a comment if you have any questions. I'll try and answer the best that I can. Thank you.